Oh, hey, Ahmed.
Oh, hey, Fugler.
How's it going?
Oh, you know.
Today we're going to talk about the animal kingdom.
Oh my gosh, like all the different types of animals?
All the different types of animals.
Like an elephant?
Like an elephant.
What else are we going to talk about?
Maybe some frogs.
Oh, like a frog.
Yeah, giraffes.
Oh, giraffes. How about some dolphins?
Yeah.
It's going to be like a zoo in there, right?
That's right.
Like, it's just going to be crazy.
Those are some crazy animals.
Crazy animals.
So just like all of our videos, pause to take notes and rewind as necessary. So frogs are in the animal kingdom.
No way, they're animals?
They're animals.
That's crazy.
I know. Unlike humans, their tongue is not attached at the back of their mouth. It's at the front.
Oh, so is that why I can go so far and catch flies?
That's right. So, Ahmed.
Hey, what?
Giraffes are also in the animal kingdom.
Oh my god, Fugler! All this time, I thought they were also animals. Weird.
Yeah, I know. So, did you know a male giraffe can weigh as much as a pickup truck?
Oh wow, that's a lot of weight.
I know. And a female giraffe gives birth while standing up. The calf can drop as much as 6 feet to the ground.
Huh, and it doesn't get hurt.
No, surprisingly. And see this picture of the giraffe drinking?
It's cute.
It's one of the most dangerous times for a giraffe. It cannot look out for predators, so it's vulnerable to an attack. Okay, now on to our notes. So these are the general characteristics that all animals in the animal kingdom share. So all animals are heterotrophic, and as we've mentioned many times before, that means they have to eat other organisms in order to gain their nutrition. They're multicellular, and they have eukaryotic cells. So their cells have a nucleus and membrane-bound organelles. Animals do not contain cell walls. So if you think back to the animal cell structure, there's a cell membrane, but no cell wall. Another characteristic for all animals is that they are all motile at some point in their life cycle. So that means that at some point in their life cycle, they're able to move. Animals reproduce sexually, and they produce an embryo that undergoes stages of development. In today's lesson, we'll be looking at a number of different properties that can be used in order to classify animals. So one property that can be used is the amount of organization and the number of body layers in that animal's body. Symmetry and animals' body plans, their body cavity or their absence of a body cavity, segmentation, movement, and lastly, embryological development. Starting with levels of organization. We mentioned this in grade 10 science. All animals have cells. Remember that the cell is the basic unit of a living thing. And cells can become specialized to form tissues. So most animals have specialized tissues, with the exception of sponges, which we'll talk about more in class. Tissues that work together can form organs, like our heart or our intestines, and organs, when working together, can form organ systems, like our digestive system, respiratory system, etc. The next characteristic for classifying animals is their number of body layers. Almost all animals have 3 layers of cells. The outer layer is called the ectoderm.
And the ectoderm usually becomes the skin, nerve tissue, and sense organs.
The mesoderm is the middle layer,
which becomes a part of the muscles, your blood, and kidney, as well as your reproductive organs.
And the endoderm is the inner layer,
which can become the stomach lining, liver, lungs, bladder, and even the pancreas.
Another thing we can look at for classification of animals is their body symmetry. It gives insight into an animal's movement, their evolution, and their interaction with prey and predators. So animals can show a type of body symmetry called asymmetry, which means that their body shape is irregular. It does not have symmetry. Another type is called radial symmetry. And you can see in this diagram that the parts of that animal's body are arranged like pieces of a pie around an imaginary central axis. Bilateral symmetry is when there's a mirror image of the right and left sides of the animal. This is the most common type of body symmetry in the animal kingdom because it's well adapted for movement, which helps in the animal's survival. So along with bilateral symmetry, most animals have cephalization. This is when their eyes and other sensory organs are up front on their heads. This allows animals to detect predators and prey more easily. Another characteristic used to classify animals is the presence or absence of a body cavity. Some animals have a fluid-filled body cavity called a coelom.
You mean a colon?
Nope, I mean a coelom.
Oh, say it with me now.
Coelom. Some benefits to animals having a coelom include that it allows the animals to move and respond more quickly, and it allows for the development of more complex organ systems. Acoelomates are animals that have flattened bodies with no coelom. Animals that fall into this category include corals, jellyfish, and flatworms. Coelomates, on the other hand, have a fluid-filled body cavity where complex organs can develop. Segmentation can also be used for classification. Segmentation is the division of the body into repetitive sections. Different segments can become specialized for specific functions. This makes mobility more effective. If one segment becomes damaged, other segments continue to function. Movement. Animals with nerve and muscle tissue are capable of complex and fast movement. Some animals, however, are sessile, which means that they're stationary as adults. Sessile animals have a body form that can move during early stages of their development, because if you'll recall, a characteristic of all animals is that they can move at some point in their life cycle. Embryological development. All animals begin life as a zygote. You might remember this term from grade 10 science. If you remember, a zygote is the term for a fertilized egg. So when a sperm contacts the egg, it becomes a zygote. Zygotes can divide in order to form a blastula. So you can see in this diagram that the zygote divides once into 2 cells, each of those cells divides into 4, and so on and so forth, until you get this hollow ball of cells called the blastula. An infolding of cells occurs at a certain spot on the blastula. This infolding will eventually push all the way through, forming a tube, and this tube will eventually develop into the digestive tract. Looking at the diagram, you can see that we start off as a zygote over here, and then cell division occurs to form that hollow ball of cells, the blastula. And then when the cells start to fold inwards, okay, you see this tube here, okay, which will eventually develop into the digestive tract. Okay, I just want to zoom in for a second and look at this hollow ball and draw your attention to this area right here. Okay, this opening is called the blastopore.
Hey, Fugler, did you know that the blastopore either becomes the mouth or the anus depending on which organism it is?
What?
What?
Oh.
So a protostome is an animal where the blastopore develops into a mouth.
And a deuterostome is an animal where the blastopore develops into an anus.
Hey, Fugler, what are we?
I don't know, what are we?
We're chordates, right?
Yeah.
So I guess we're, deuterostomes?
Or deuterostomes.
Sure.
Biologists use this sequence of development to determine how closely related animal species are. We'll discuss more of this in the evolution unit. We've seen a diagram like this previously in the unit. It's a phylogenetic tree. Remember, the phylogenetic tree is used to show the evolutionary connections between organisms. So at the top of this diagram, we've got the different phyla of animals, which we'll talk more about in class together. And you can see at the bottom, okay, are characteristics that all of the phylums share. Okay, so they believe that animals evolved from an ancestral colonial protist. So that's their common ancestor. And then the first characteristic they're looking at is whether or not these animals have tissues. So the only phyla of animals that don't have tissues are the sponges. So you can see the phylogenetic tree branches off on its own over here. Okay, sponges don't have true tissues. So all the ones above this classification have true tissues. The next characteristic they're using to divide these animals is whether or not they have radial symmetry or bilateral symmetry. So the only phyla of animals that have radial symmetry are the cnidarians, which include the jellyfish. All of these other ones have bilateral symmetry. And then you can see the next characteristic is whether they're protostomes or deuterostomes. So all of these phyla are protostomes, and then these two are deuterostomes. So again, the key for phylogenetic trees is to show how closely related the organisms are within the phyla. So you can see that these two would be the most closely related because they have the most in common in terms of these classifications. Another way that animals are commonly classified is whether or not they have a backbone. So vertebrates is the term used for animals with a backbone, and invertebrates are animals without a backbone. This category actually includes more than 98% of all animals.